Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Slivick, and I'm with Tom Sage. How are you doing, Tom?
Good, sir.
Tom, give us your title.
I'm Supervising Investigator with the Amador DA's office.
Okay, Supervising Investigator. And you were an investigator with the Sheriff's Department.
I was a deputy with the Sheriff's office.
A deputy? What were your duties then?
As a deputy with the Sheriff's office, I started in 1990. I had just turned 21 years old and worked there from 90 to 97 and until I went to the DA's office and took an investigator spot there.
Okay. Okay, so did you do investigating in the as a sheriff's deputy?
As a sheriff's deputy, I was not an investigator there. I was a patrol deputy.
Okay.
Had a narcotics canine. Was on the SWAT team.
Okay.
Dive team, search and rescue. Things
Okay,
of that nature.
I remember seeing you and doing some stuff with you and all, but I couldn't remember. So what got you in? You must have left there. Did you have to go to school, or did you go right to the district attorney's office?
No, I just went to the DA's office. I grew up here in Amador County, and prior to going to work at the sheriff's office, I went through the academy down at San Joaquin Delta College.
Okay.
Finished that up, and I just turned 21 years old and started about a week later at the sheriff's office. From there, in 97, there was an opening at the DA's office for an investigator spot, so I went ahead and applied there.
Okay. All right. Now, what's workers' compensation fraud? I think we all know what it is. Why don't you give us a definition of it?
Workers' compensation fraud occurs when someone knowingly lies to obtain benefit or advantage to which they otherwise wouldn't have been entitled to receive. It also occurs when someone knowingly denies some benefit that is due. And when we talk about benefits, we're saying workers' compensation benefits, be it the temporary disability payments or some type of a medical benefit, medical follow-up, going to the doctor, et cetera, from an injury.
Okay. And so it works on both sides of the employment from the
employee and also
employee,
the employer.
right.
Correct.
Either one can be involved in workers' comp fraud.
Correct. And with workers' compensation fraud, it is a big problem in California. And the fraud involved, creates a cloud over those who have legitimate injuries.
Right. There's
thousands of claims every year with legitimate injured people, and the workers' comp fraud just creates a cloud over that. And with fraud, it passes on, higher costs to consumers, et cetera, to taxpayers.
Right. So that's the reason why probably all of us should be aware of it and frown on workers' compensation fraud is because of the costs that we all bear when through the fraud.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, what are the common types of workers' compensation fraud?
There's three common types: claimant fraud, employer fraud, and provider fraud. And I can kind of go into details with a little bit of each one.
Okay.
Claimant fraud would be a lot of times what people consider with the injured worker. It could be where the injured worker basically shows up for work and they make a claim and they were never injured to begin with. Or it could be that they maybe had an injury that occurred over the weekend. They come back to work and they decide to go ahead and make a claim and say that they were hurt at work when they were in fact hurt at home, moving furniture, working in the yard, things of that nature. Let's see. Falsifying reports. Sometimes an injured worker may go to a doctor's appointment, and when they see the doctor may give them a note saying, hey, you need to go back to work on this particular day or the next day. And there is a date on it, and they're supposed to turn it back into their employer or the insurance company, when in fact, before turning it in to their employer, they changed the note, taking them off work maybe an additional 2 or 3 days or a week or two. That is fraud as well.
It seems to me like that might occur more in a smaller business that doesn't have the ability to, probably call up the doctor or doesn't have the time, to do all the follow-up work, as opposed to a much larger business that probably has an HR that looks at those kind of things.
You would think that, but unfortunately,
It's
I've
not the
seen
case,
it
huh?
not only in small mom-and-pop type businesses with maybe 1 or 2 employees,
Mm-hmm.
but I've also seen it at large companies as well, even at the state level. So.
Wow. Okay. And, what does a workers' compensation fraud unit do to investigate and prosecute?
The Amador DA's office, we prosecute workers' compensation fraud in Amador, Calaveras, and Placer counties. We do all 3 counties. We have investigators assigned to actually conduct the investigations, whether it be follow-up with surveillance, interviews with doctors, interviews with witnesses, report writing, and then we actually have a attorney assigned as well, a deputy DA, and the attorney handles prosecution in all 3 counties. Will actually appear in court in all 3 counties as well.
Okay, so did the other 2 counties sub out to Amador County?
What happens? What happens?
Because we have a. Go ahead.
What happens with that is, about 15 years ago, the DA's office in Amador County went ahead and received a grant from Department of Insurance to investigate and prosecute workers' compensation fraud. At the time, we just did Amador County. We then eventually branched out to Calaveras County because they didn't have a program. Talked to the DA there and agreed that, hey, that Amador County can go ahead and receive the grant funding to do both counties. And from there, we branched out probably about 5 years ago to Placer as well, Placer County, where Roseville is. And the DA's office there wasn't doing it, and so they agreed with our DA, Todd Reevy, to allow our office to go ahead and get the grant funding to have one program to handle all 3 counties.
Okay, so the funding for the district attorney's office comes from grants?
It does. The grant funding comes from a grant from the Department of Insurance, but the money originally comes from when any employer in California gets workers' compensation insurance. There is an assessment that they pay, and that assessment on each premium goes to a fund with the Department.
So in a way, then that's not a function. What you do is a function of government, and the government paying you, but a fund that comes from employees and employers.
Yes. It's actually a fund from employers who are paying the
That's
premiums
interesting.
from workers' compensation insurance.
Okay, and now how often do they have to write for a grant fund?
Every year we have to apply for the new grant, put stats in from a previous year, talk about what we'll be doing for the next fiscal year, and it comes up July 1st through June 30th of each year.
Okay, well, we've had 30 seconds, and I think when we come back, maybe I'll be asking, like, is it a very competitive grant, or is it, a grant that that you're going to get, you can almost always feel sure you're going to get. And why don't we wait till after the break, and then we'll get the answer. So stay with us right here on TSPN's News. You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN. Hi everyone, Tom Slivick, and I'm back with Tom Sage, Supervising Investigating Attorney for the District Attorney's Office for Workers' Compensation Fraud.
Supervising Investigator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we were talking about that every year Amador County writes grants. Mm-hmm. You don't write the grant. I believe you say your attorneys do. What all do they have to do in that grant to satisfy the conditions?
Yeah, in the grant, what they'll do is they'll list some of the cases we worked on the previous year and ideas that we have for the coming year, things we want to reach out to. If we have particular cases that are in the court process at the time, pending trial, they'll talk about those. Okay.
Now, we have 3 counties. You're working with 3 counties: Amador, Calaveras, and Placer.
Correct.
And how many people then is it that you're looking after, so to speak?
The population of Amador and Calaveras is approximately 35,000 plus per county.
Okay.
Placer County is much larger. It's 300,000 population in Placer alone.
Okay. How many investigators do you have?
We have myself,
or how many
being
with
the supervising
the team?
investigator. We have 2 investigators.
Look at all of these cases.
Yeah, we have 2 investigators who are primarily assigned to conduct workers' compensation fraud,
okay,
and a full-time deputy DA and some other office staff that assist us at times.
Okay. Now we're getting in an area now, like, all right, how do you pick what cases, or how do you find out who you might look into or what you might be looking into with all of these possibilities?
Yeah, we get cases referred to us from a number of different locations. One would be the insurance companies themselves. We often get referrals directly from them, and at times they will actually have already done surveillance. They had their special investigations unit, which is investigators that work for the insurance companies who sometimes will go out and actually do surveillance. So they will submit reports to us with the suspected fraud that they see, whether it be somebody who maybe has gone to a doctor, claimed that they can't move a particular body part from an injury, yet prior to that they were seen on video surveillance actually with free movement of that certain body part. Maybe they say they can't walk, yet they're seen jogging or something like
Right.
that. So anyway, cases come from the insurance company. They also come from Department of Insurance from the state of California. We do work with them. We get the grant funding through Department of Insurance. They help regulate it. So sometimes they will be made aware of a case, and we'll either work on a case with them or they will refer it to us. We also get tips from the public. We get phone calls at our office. We also have a website that people can make a tip to us on, and actually it's www.stopworkcompfraud.org, and it'll take you to our DA's office website, and there is an area on there where somebody can actually make a referral to us, and there's additional information on the website regarding our fraud program, what fraud is, and there is actually a small video on there as well that talks about workers' comp fraud.
Okay, well, we've actually here at TSPN have had I believe insurance companies, maybe it was even the DA's office, ask years back for, can we get a tape of that softball game, or can we get a tape of this? I forget the particulars, because there's a guy in it that's playing baseball that, softball that, wasn't supposed to be able to be moving around and things like that. So that's what you mean in a way when you get referrals or you find out where the stories aren't matching up.
Yeah, we want to compare, what the person is saying to what they're actually doing. And keep in mind, the fraud isn't necessarily the activity that the person is doing, it's actually lying about it. It's the lie. So somebody may be able to go out and, be off on workers' compensation and receiving temporary disability payments, medical, payments, but they may, the fraud is actually when they lie about their activity. So if they, as long as they're telling the doctor the truth, if they can go outside and walk around the block, or if they can go and take their kids to school, or they can drag the garbage out to the corner, or do some, mow the lawn,
Right.
As long as they tell the doctor that and don't withhold that and lie about it, then they're okay. So it's when they lie about those activities that's
Right, so in
the
other
fraud.
words, you have to, I guess, be honest with the doctor, so the doctor give you a correct diagnosis.
Correct.
And
And
right
get you
when
back to work when you need to be.
to go back to work.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I guess that's the other side too. The person could be lying about what would an employer be lying about?
We have had cases with employers where, for instance, we had a case involving a large grocery chain that was discouraging their employees from making workers' compensation claims. And they had employees who would actually come to the manager and assistant manager, and with back injury, whatever it is that they're claiming, and the managers would ask them, hey, let's not make a workers' comp claim, just go to your private doctor and make a claim that way, or not make a claim, go to your private doctor and tell them you were hurt at home and that it was, you hurt yourself some other way. And in doing that, the injured worker is basically ends up billing, their private medical insurance gets paid or billed fraudulently as opposed to the work comp system. And plus, with that certain circumstance or that situation, the
Right.
manager and assistant manager were trying to keep their claims down because they actually received bonuses at the end of the year based on part of it was the number of work comp claims that the store had. So it was a complicated case, but that was a scenario where actually an employer was committing fraud. There's another situation where an employer could commit workers' compensation fraud is actually not even carrying workers' compensation insurance. And in those situations, you may have seen or been familiar with some of the cases we worked with the Contractor State License Board,
Right.
where we do unlicensed contractor
Right.
stings, or we'll do they call it a sweep, where we'll go out to construction sites throughout the day,
Right.
just checking for workers' compensation
And of course, there are a
insurance.
lot of I guess the fraud would be, first of all, not having it, but also an unfair competition that one would have if you're not bearing the cost of workers' comp for your employees,
Correct.
and then of course they get hurt, it's bad, but also you can put in a much lower bid,
Yeah,
and the
correct.
person that's working legally is at an unfair advantage. How does this also take advantage of maybe the homeowner in that situation? Go ahead.
A homeowner needs to be cognizant of who they're hiring. We recommend before they hire a contractor to check on the Contractor State License Board website. They actually have an area where you can search by the contractor's license number or their name or the business name, and you can verify that they are a licensed contractor. You can also see if they have workers' compensation insurance. A contractor may claim to be exempt from workers' comp and say that they have no employees, and that's fine. And you can, there's no problem with hiring that person as long as they don't have additional employees that are coming on the job site. But the homeowners really need to be careful of who they're hiring, because if they bring somebody to their home and there's no workers' compensation insurance and the person falls off a ladder or is injured, then they open themselves up and their own homeowner's insurance up to somebody who could potentially make a claim against them now as potentially being there.
If he doesn't do due diligence, then I guess
correct.
He's might be liable.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. And so it would almost seem like through no fault of your own that you would have to check all that, but you do.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's great talking to you, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Workers' compensation fraud. Found out a little bit about it today. And stay with us. We'll be back with more news on the other side of the break.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.